Captain Jake Morrison stepped off the transport shuttle and immediately regretted every life choice that had led him to this moment. Zenith Station sprawled before him like a chrome and crystal fever dream, all gleaming spires and pretentious architecture that screamed, "We have more money than sense." The galaxy's most prestigious conservation facility, they called it. Jake called it what it really was, the universe's fanciest zoo, complete with an admission price that could bankrupt a small moon. "Come on, Rex," he muttered to the golden retriever trotting beside him. "Let's get this over with." Rex wagged his tail once, the picture of canine contentment. To anyone watching, he looked like your average Earth dog, maybe a little too calm for his surroundings, but nothing special. Jake knew better. Then again, Jake knew a lot of things these aliens were about to find out the hard way. "Ah, the human delegation has arrived." The voice carried enough condescension to power a small starship. Jake turned to see Director Vexkala gliding toward them, her iridescent feathers catching the artificial sunlight. She looked like a peacock that had gone to business school and developed a superiority complex. "Welcome to Zenith Station, honored guest." Jake's smile could have cut glass. "Thanks for the warm welcome, Director, really feeling the hospitality." Vexkala's head tilted at an angle that suggested she either didn't understand sarcasm or chose to ignore it, probably both. "And this must be your companion creature." She gestured at Rex with one wing, the same way someone might point out a particularly interesting bug. "How quaint that your species forms such attachments to lower life forms." Rex sat perfectly still, tongue lolling out in what looked like a dopey grin. Jake scratched behind the dog's ears. "Yeah, we're real sentimental that way. Hope that's not a problem." "Oh, not at all," Vexkala practically chirped. "In fact, our research division is quite excited to observe this primitive bonding behavior. Dr. Nimara has prepared extensive documentation protocols." "Documentation protocols," Jake repeated slowly. "For my dog." "Indeed. We so rarely get to study pre-warp species and their domestic animals. It's like watching evolution in action, really. Absolutely fascinating from an anthropological standpoint." Jake bit back about 12 different responses, none of which would have helped diplomatic relations. Instead, he nodded toward the massive complex stretching out behind them. "So this is the famous Zenith Station. Heard you've got quite the collection here." Vexkala puffed up with pride, which made her look like a disco ball having an identity crisis. "The finest conservation facility in 7 sectors. We house over 3,000 species from across the galaxy, all in perfectly controlled environments. Our security systems are absolutely impenetrable, our containment protocols are flawless, and our safety record is unmatched." "Unmatched, huh?" Jake glanced around at the gleaming walls and force field barriers. Everything looked impressive enough, but he'd learned not to trust appearances, especially when the people running the show were this smug about it. That's quite a claim." "Not a claim, human. A fact." Vexkala's voice carried the absolute certainty of someone who had never been wrong about anything important. "Our automated systems are overseen by the most advanced AI in the quadrant. Our containment fields are powered by 3 redundant fusion cores, and our security staff are the elite of the elite." Rex yawned and flopped down onto his belly, apparently bored by the conversation. Jake couldn't blame him. "Well," Jake said, "sounds like you've got everything figured out. Should be a nice, quiet visit." Famous last words, as it turned out. The registration office looked like it had been designed by someone who thought paperwork was an art form. Holographic forms floated in the air, while automated scanners hummed and beeped with the efficiency of a bureaucratic nightmare. Jake stood at what he assumed was a desk, watching an alien clerk with 6 arms type on 4 different keyboards simultaneously. "Species designation?" the clerk asked without looking up. "Human. Subclassification? The regular kind." One of the clerk's many eyes swiveled toward him. "Sir, we need your proper taxonomic designation for processing." Jake sighed. "Homo sapiens, Terran variant, the kind that pays taxes and complains about the weather." Before the clerk could respond, a door whooshed open, and inbounded what looked like a cross between a butterfly and a caffeinated college professor. She practically vibrated with excitement as she spotted Rex. "Oh my stars, is this the companion creature?" Dr. Nimara fluttered over, her translucent wings shimmering. "I'm Dr. Nimara, Xenobiology Department. This is absolutely thrilling, a genuine human-animal bond in its natural state." Rex looked up at her with mild interest, the same way he might regard a particularly slow-moving squirrel. "He's beautiful," Nimmara gushed, pulling out what looked like a tricorder crossed with a smartphone. Look at that coat, those eyes, that perfect example of selective breeding for companionship traits. What's his designation? His name is Rex, Jake said. And he's not really a pet, he's more of a... Fascinating. They even assign individual identifiers to create stronger emotional attachment. Nimmara was practically bouncing. And the human shows clear protective behavior patterns. Classic pack bonding. Jake tried again. Actually, he's a working dog. We serve together in... Working. Oh yes, of course. Therapeutic companionship. Emotional support for primitive psychological needs. Nimmara made rapid notes on her device. I've read about this. The creature provides comfort through physical contact and unconditional acceptance, helping the human cope with the stress of space travel and social interaction with superior species. Superior species, Jake repeated flatly. The six-armed clerk had been running Rex through various scanners. Classification complete. Species, Canis lupus familiaris. Subtype, domestic companion. Threat level, 0. Security clearance, minimal. Classification, class, harmless. Domestic companion. Rex's tail thumped once against the floor. Harmless, Jake said. Right. Oh, completely, Nimmara agreed. Look at that docile temperament, bred specifically for compliance and affection. No aggressive instincts whatsoever. It's amazing how your species managed to completely domesticate such creatures. Yeah, we're real good at that, Jake muttered, watching Rex methodically scan the room with the kind of calm assessment that most people missed entirely. Listen, there's something you should probably know about. Oh, don't worry about the adaptation period, Nimmara interrupted. Our environmental controls will keep your companion perfectly comfortable, temperature regulated, proper atmospheric composition, even synthetic earth sense if he gets homesick. The clerk stamped something with more force than necessary. Registration complete. The creature is authorized for all public areas. Please note that feeding of exhibit animals is strictly prohibited, and the creature must remain on its restraint device at all times. Jake looked down at Rex, who wasn't wearing a leash. Rex looked back up at Jake with the kind of expression that suggested he found the whole situation mildly amusing. Restraint device, Jake said. Oh yes. Vexkala had reappeared, somehow managing to look even more smug than before. Safety protocols, you understand. We can't have unsecured creatures wandering about, even harmless ones. Dr. Nimmara, I trust the documentation is proceeding smoothly? Wonderfully. I'm planning a full behavioral study. The interaction patterns alone could fill several research papers. Jake pulled a simple collar and leash from his pack. Standard military issue, but unremarkable enough to pass casual inspection. Rex sat perfectly still while Jake clipped it on. There, Jake said. One restrained, harmless domestic companion, ready for your 5-star accommodations. Excellent, Vexkala beamed. Now, shall we begin the grand tour? I'm simply dying to show you our prize exhibits. I do hope your pet won't be too frightened by some of our more impressive specimens. Rex yawned again and stretched, apparently unconcerned about meeting any impressive specimens. Jake shouldered his pack and followed the director toward the main complex. Oh, I'm sure he'll handle it just fine. Rex has always been good with other animals. The main exhibit hall was impressive, Jake had to admit. Massive transparent barriers contained everything from crystalline tree creatures that sang in harmonics to what looked like a cross between a tiger and a small building. Families of various alien species wandered between exhibits, pointing and making whatever sounds passed for ooh and ah in their respective languages. Our crown jewel, Vexkala announced, gesturing grandly at a reinforced observation deck, is the Voidstalker exhibit. The only specimen in captivity, captured at tremendous expense from the Maelstrom Nebula. Jake peered through the barrier at what appeared to be empty space. Then his eyes adjusted, and he saw it. 8 feet of liquid shadow with too many teeth and eyes that seemed to absorb light. It moved like smoke, given predatory intent. Ah, Jake said. That's not terrifying at all. Oh, it's perfectly safe, Vexkala assured him. Triple redundant containment fields, automated sedation systems, and constant monitoring. The barrier is rated for forces that could level a city block. Rex had wandered over to the exhibit and was sitting calmly, watching the Voidstalker with the kind of professional interest a mechanic might show toward an interesting engine problem. The creature noticed him and pressed against the barrier, studying the dog with what might have been curiosity. How adorable! Dr. Nimmara had caught up with them, still taking notes. Look how the creature shows no fear response whatsoever. Classic domestication syndrome. completely unaware of predator-prey dynamics. Yeah, Jake said slowly, watching Rex's ears prick forward slightly. Completely unaware. A massive figure lumbered over to join them. If someone had crossed a rhinoceros with a bouncer and given it military training, they might have gotten something like Grunt, the head of station security. His voice sounded like gravel in a cement mixer. Human? Grunt rumbled by way of greeting. Heard you're some kind of soldier. Was, Jake corrected. Retired now. Just a simple trader these days. Grunt snorted, which created a sound like a small avalanche. Humans, soft species, all talk, no action. Your military probably couldn't handle a single Klaxon warbeast, let alone something like that. He nodded toward the Voidstalker. Probably not, Jake agreed amiably. We're pretty useless in a fight. At least you admit it, Grunt said, apparently taking this as a compliment. My security force could contain any breach in minutes. We drill constantly. Perfect response protocols. Jake glanced around the exhibit area, noting escape routes, sight lines, and what looked suspiciously like structural weak points in the barrier design. I'm sure you do. They moved on to the next exhibit, a massive aquatic environment housing something that looked like an angry jellyfish the size of a house. The tour continued with Vexkala providing increasingly dramatic descriptions, while Jake noticed increasingly obvious security flaws. The automated systems had too many single points of failure. The barriers were impressive but relied entirely on power from the main grid. The emergency protocols assumed all threats would remain conveniently contained to their designated areas, and the staff, for all their advanced technology, had the situational awareness of particularly pampered houseplants. This is our feeding observation deck, Vexkala announced as they reached a new area. We're about to witness the daily feeding of our Nexus predators. Quite spectacular, really. Through the barrier, Jake could see a pack of creatures that looked like wolves crossed with industrial equipment. Sleek, metallic, and obviously built for killing things efficiently. A mechanical arm was lowering chunks of meat into their enclosure. Rex had been perfectly calm throughout the entire tour, but now Jake noticed the dog's posture shift slightly. Not enough for anyone else to catch, but Jake had worked with Rex for 3 years. The dog had gone from relaxed tourist to professional assessment mode. Beautiful specimens, Dr. Nimara was saying. Perfectly adapted apex predators from Kepler 442b. Notice how they coordinate their hunting patterns even in captivity. A soft alarm chimed somewhere in the distance, then another. Vexkala frowned and tapped her communication device. Minor technical difficulty, she announced after a brief conversation. Nothing to worry about. Our maintenance staff will have it resolved momentarily. Jake had heard enough minor technical difficulties during his military career to know that famous last words when he heard them. Rex's ears were now fully alert, and his nose was working overtime, processing scents that the humans couldn't detect. The lights flickered once, twice. Emergency lighting kicked in with a red glow that made everything look like the set of a horror movie. Perfectly normal, Vexkala said, though her voice had climbed about an octave. Routine power cycling. Happens all the time. Rex stood up and moved to Jake's side, still appearing calm to casual observation but positioning himself with the automatic precision of someone who had done this before. A lot. You know what, Jake said conversationally. Maybe we should head back toward the main entrance. Just in case this routine power cycling gets a little less routine. Grunt laughed, a sound like boulders having an argument. Typical human. First sign of minor difficulty and you want to run. The barriers are powered by independent fusion cores. Nothing could possibly go wrong. In Jake's experience, anyone who said nothing could possibly go wrong was usually about 5 seconds away from discovering just how wrong they could be. The Nexus predators had stopped eating and were all staring at something beyond the barrier. Their metallic fur was standing on end, and they were making a sound like a diesel engine having nightmares. Rex tilted his head slightly, the canine equivalent of "Did you hear that?" Jake had. Somewhere in the distance, something had just gone very, very wrong. The sound started as a low rumble, like thunder deciding to take up residence in the station's superstructure. Then, it became something worse. Something that suggested very large, very angry things were no longer where they were supposed to be. What was that? Dr. Nimara's wings fluttered nervously. Vexkala was frantically tapping her communication device, her earlier smugness evaporating faster than water in a vacuum. Control, this is Director Vexkala. Please respond. Control? The rumbling got louder and closer. I'm sure it's nothing, Vexkala said, but her voice cracked on the word nothing. Static hissed from her communicator, punctuated by what sounded suspiciously like screaming. Jake looked down at Rex, who was now standing at full attention, ears forward, every muscle coiled like a spring. The dog's tail wasn't wagging anymore. "Rex says we should probably move," Jake announced. "And when Rex says move, I generally listen." "Don't be ridiculous," Grunt rumbled. "The creature can't possibly understand." He was interrupted by an explosion that rattled the entire observation deck. The lights went out completely for 3 seconds, then emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in hellish red. Through the transparent barriers, Jake could see the Nexus predators going absolutely insane, throwing themselves against their containment with enough force to crack the reinforced walls. "Okay," Jake said, his voice cutting through the rising panic. "Everyone stay calm. We're going to walk, not run, toward the nearest exit. Rex. Heel." Raps fell into position at Jake's left side with military precision. Jake noticed that the dog was now scanning their surroundings with the methodical intensity of a professional soldier clearing a room. Another explosion, this one close enough to shake dust from the ceiling. The Nexus Predator's barrier flickered once, twice, then failed completely. "Oh," Dr. Nimara whispered. "Oh dear." 6 metallic wolf things poured out of their enclosure like liquid death with anger management issues. They moved as a coordinated unit, spreading out to cover all possible escape routes, with the kind of tactical awareness that suggested they'd been planning this for weeks. "The emergency protocols," Vex Kala shrieked into her communicator. "Activate emergency protocols." "What emergency protocols would those be?" Jake asked conversationally while backing slowly toward what he hoped was still an exit. "The ones that depend on the power grid that just failed? Or the ones that assume your security team isn't currently being used as chew toys?" As if summoned by his words, screams echoed through the corridors. Not the good kind of screams, the kind that suggested someone was having an unpleasant day, the kind that suggested someone was having their last day. Grunt was trying to raise his security forces on his own communicator, his earlier confidence replaced by something approaching panic. "Security Team Alpha, respond. Beta Team, what's your status? Anyone?" The response was mostly static, with a side order of roars that definitely hadn't come from any terrestrial throat. "I think," Jake said, "we might want to consider the possibility that your perfect security measures have experienced what we technical types like to call a total systemic failure." One of the Nexus predators had noticed their group and was stalking closer, its metallic hide reflecting the emergency lighting, like a nightmare disco ball. Its packmates flanked it, moving with the coordinated precision of apex predators who had suddenly remembered what they were designed for. Rex hadn't moved from Jake's side, but something had changed in his posture. The easygoing family pet was gone, replaced by something that stood with the balanced readiness of a professional who'd been in situations like this before. "Nice doggies," Dr. Nimara whispered, apparently confusing the Nexus predators with something that might respond to baby talk. The lead predator opened its mouth, revealing teeth that looked like they'd been designed by a committee of sadists with engineering degrees. It made a sound like a chainsaw learning to purr. "Those aren't dogs," Jake said. "Those are what dogs have nightmares about." More sounds echoed through the facility, breaking glass, roaring, something that might have been a building falling down. Through the transparent walls, Jake could see other exhibits failing in spectacular fashion. The crystalline tree creatures were singing in frequencies that shattered their own barriers. The house-sized jellyfish was dissolving its way through the aquatic containment system, and somewhere in the distance, something was howling with enough volume to rattle Jake's teeth. "The Void Stalker," Vexcala breathed, all pretense of control abandoned. "If the Void Stalker gets out." "When," Jake corrected. "When the Void Stalker gets out. Because based on current trends, I'm guessing your triple redundant containment is about as reliable as your routine power cycling." The lead Nexus predator was now close enough that Jake could count its teeth. He really wished he couldn't. Rex remained perfectly still, but Jake could feel the tension radiating from the dog like heat from a furnace. Behind them, more barriers were failing. Jake could hear the distinctive sound of very large, very upset creatures discovering that they were no longer trapped in small spaces. Some of them sounded hungry. Others sounded like they had scores to settle. "This is impossible," Grunt was muttering. "The systems are foolproof. The protocols are perfect. This can't be happening." "Famous last words," Jake said. "Right up there with what could go wrong, and it's perfectly safe." A new sound joined the symphony of destruction. Something that made the Nexus predators freeze and look toward the deeper sections of the facility. Something that made the emergency lighting flicker just from the sound waves. "Dr. Vexcala whispered, is the Void Stalker." Through the chaos, Jake could see a section of the main corridor that had gone completely dark. Not just unlit, dark in a way that seemed to absorb the emergency lighting, creating a moving shadow that flowed like liquid nightmare. "Okay," Jake said, his voice carrying the forced calm of someone who'd been in way too many situations like this. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to move toward the exit in an orderly fashion. We're going to avoid making any sudden movements, and we're going to hope that Rex here remembers his training." Rex's tail moved once, not a wag, more like a battle flag being raised. What happened next would have been hilarious if it weren't so terrifying. The lead Nexus predator, apparently deciding that the small group of soft aliens looked like an easy meal, bunched its muscles and leapt straight at Dr. Nimara with enough force to punch through a bulkhead. It never made it. Rex moved like liquid lightning, intercepting the predator mid-slight with a precision that spoke of years of training and combat experience. The impact sounded like a small car accident, and suddenly there were two apex predators rolling across the floor in a tangle of fur, metal, and very sharp teeth. "Holy shit," Jake breathed. Then louder, "Rex, Defensive Protocol 7. The transformation was instantaneous. Gone was the dopey family pet who'd been wagging his tail at alien bureaucrats. In his place was 80 pounds of military-trained combat specialist who'd been bred, raised, and trained for exactly this kind of situation. Rex disengaged from the Nexus predator with a move that would have made a martial arts instructor weep with pride, rolled to his feet, and settled into a defensive stance that put himself between the pack and the terrified aliens. His hackles were up, his ears were forward, and his lips were pulled back to reveal teeth that suddenly looked a lot more impressive than they had 5 minutes ago. "What?" Dr. Nimara squeaked. "Is happening?" "Military working dog," Jake said, pulling a small device from his pack and thumbing it to life. "Explosive ordnance disposal specialist, search and rescue certified and combat veteran. 3 tours in the vegan conflict, 2 commendations for valor under fire, and a perfect record for keeping his unit alive in hostile territory." The device beeped once and Rex's collar released with a soft click, revealing the tactical harness underneath. Suddenly, the harmless domestic companion was sporting enough military hardware to outfit a small squad. "Class harmless domestic companion," Jake continued conversationally, while Rex faced down 6 creatures that had been terrorizing alien space for centuries. "Right." The Nexus predators had regrouped and were circling with the coordinated precision of a military unit. Rex didn't move, but his eyes tracked each one, calculating angles, distances, and threat assessments with the mechanical precision of a targeting computer. "This is impossible," Grunt rumbled. "No single creature can face a pack of Nexus predators. They're apex predators from a death world." "So is he," Jake said. "Earth isn't exactly a garden party, in case you hadn't noticed." The pack leader made its move, coming in low and fast. Rex waited until the last possible second, then moved with a combination of speed and tactical awareness that made the alien security forces look like they were moving through molasses. He pivoted, using the predator's momentum against it, and sent it crashing into 2 of its packmates. The remaining 3 attacked simultaneously from different angles. Any normal animal would have been overwhelmed. Rex wasn't any normal animal. They were trained to work in war zones, where the enemy had energy weapons, explosive devices, and air support. 6 angry metal wolves were definitely a problem, but they were a problem with a tactical solution. Rex darted between them, using their pack coordination against them. When they moved to surround him, he'd already shifted position. When they tried to flank him, he'd anticipated the move and countered. It was like watching a chess master play against 6 amateurs who thought the game was checkers. "Incredible," Dr. Nimara whispered. "The tactical intelligence, the situational awareness, the coordination between cognitive processing and physical response. This isn't just domestication, this is military-grade enhancement." 30,000 years of selective breeding, Jake said with pride, combined with 2 years of intensive military training and 3 years of combat experience. Rex has faced down everything from explosive devices to hostile aliens to environmental hazards that would kill most sentient species. One of the Nexus predators tried to get around Rex's flank to reach the huddled aliens. Rex anticipated the move, intercepted, and delivered a takedown that sent the creature sliding across the polished floor with a sound like a freight train derailing. But the real test came when the lights went out completely. Emergency power had failed, plunging the entire section into absolute darkness. Jake heard Vexkalas scream, heard Grunt's communicator clatter to the floor, heard Dr. Nimara's wings beating frantically against the air. In the darkness, he heard Rex working. The sounds were distinctive if you knew what to listen for. The soft padding of paws moving with absolute confidence across terrain that his enhanced senses could map in real time. the controlled breathing of an operative maintaining peak performance under stress, the precise application of force that spoke of a professional who knew exactly how much pressure was required to neutralize a threat without causing unnecessary damage. The Nexus predators, for all their technological enhancement, were suddenly facing an opponent who'd been trained to operate in conditions they couldn't handle. They'd been bred for pack hunting on their homeworld, with specific environmental parameters and predictable prey behavior. Rex had been trained to adapt to any environment, any threat, any tactical situation. Darkness wasn't a disadvantage for him. It was just another variable in the equation. When the emergency power flickered back on 30 seconds later, all 6 Nexus predators were unconscious but breathing, arranged in a neat semicircle around the alien group. Rex sat in the center, panting slightly but otherwise showing no signs of stress. His tail was wagging again. "Good boy," Jake said, scratching behind Rex's ears. "Very good boy." The aliens stared in stunned silence. Then the real crisis began. From the deeper sections of the facility came a sound like reality tearing at the seams. The Voidstalker had finally broken free of its containment, and it was heading straight for them, drawn by the scent of fear and the sound of combat. Through the transparent barriers, Jake could see it flowing through the corridors like liquid darkness given predatory intent. It moved wrong, defying physics and common sense, sliding along walls and ceiling as easily as the floor. "Then," Jake said, "is going to be a problem." Rex looked toward the approaching shadow, tilted his head thoughtfully, then looked back at Jake with an expression that clearly said, "You want me to handle this too." In the distance, a group of alien youngsters were trapped in a collapsed exhibit area, their panicked calls echoing through the facility. The Voidstalker was flowing directly toward them, attracted by their distress. Rex's ears pricked forward. He looked at Jake once more, tail wagging hopefully. Jake sighed and pulled a tactical light from his pack, clipping it to Rex's harness. "Okay, boy. Show them what Earth's finest can do." Rex bounded toward the shadows, tail wagging like he was heading out for the world's most dangerous game of fetch. The Voidstalker turned toward this new challenge, its form shifting and writhing as it prepared to face down the galaxy's most underestimated predator. "This," Jake said to the stunned aliens, "is going to be good." What followed was less a fight and more a masterclass in interspecies combat tactics. The Voidstalker flowed toward the trapped youngsters like a living nightmare, its form shifting between solid and shadow as it prepared to feed. Then, Rex arrived. The tactical light on his harness cut through the creature's darkness like a laser through smoke, revealing something that had evolved in the deep void between stars, where light was a forgotten concept. The Voidstalker recoiled, its form writhing as it tried to adapt to this unexpected challenge. Rex didn't hesitate. He'd faced unknowns before, adapted to alien environments, improvised solutions to problems that didn't exist in any training manual. The creature might be able to phase between dimensions, but it still had to interact with physical reality to affect its prey. And anything that could interact with physical reality could be stopped by someone who understood physics, tactics, and applied violence. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds, Jake timed it. It ended with the Voidstalker retreating back into the deeper sections of the facility, apparently deciding that whatever was down there was preferable to dealing with an Earth dog who'd figured out its weaknesses and exploited them with the methodical precision of a professional problem solver. Rex trotted back to Jake's side, tongue lolling out in a satisfied grin, the tactical light still strapped to his harness. Behind him, a group of very young, very grateful alien children were being reunited with their families. "Status report," Jake asked. Rex sat, tail wagging, and barked once. Mission accomplished. The aftermath was almost anticlimactic. Facility security, what was left of it, finally arrived with enough firepower to level a small city. They found Rex sitting calmly beside Jake, looking every inch the harmless family pet except for the tactical harness, and the fact that the facility's most dangerous predators were either unconscious, contained, or hiding in the deepest sections of the station. Director Vexkala stood among the wreckage of her perfect facility, her iridescent feathers now dull with dust and shock. Her earlier arrogance had been replaced by something approaching humility, though she was clearly struggling with the concept. "I don't understand," she said for the 15th time. "The threat assessments, the classification protocols, the behavioral analysis. How did we miss this?" "You didn't miss it," Jake said patiently. "You ignored it. I tried to tell you Rex was a working dog with military experience. Dr. Nimara was too busy taking notes about primitive bonding behaviors to listen. Grunt assumed humans were too soft for real combat. Your entire system was built on the assumption that you already knew everything worth knowing. Dr. Nimara was frantically rewriting her research notes, her earlier enthusiasm replaced by scientific awe. The cognitive processing speed, the tactical adaptation, the environmental assessment capabilities. This isn't just training, this is active intelligence application in real-time combat scenarios. Yeah, Jake said, we call it thinking. It's pretty useful in a crisis. Grunt was conspicuously silent. His perfect security protocols had been shattered by 6 escaped predators and 1 shadow monster, while a single Earth dog had handled the situation with what appeared to be casual competence. His worldview was currently undergoing some significant restructuring. The paperwork alone, Vexkala muttered, staring at the damage reports scrolling across her tablet. The insurance claims, the incident reviews, the safety protocol revisions. How do I explain to the Galactic Conservation Authority that our most secure facility was saved by a Class F harmless domestic companion? You could start by reclassifying him, Jake suggested. Maybe something a little more accurate than harmless domestic companion. Rex's new classification, when the paperwork was finally processed, read Canis lupus familiaris, Earth variant, military specialist, combat veteran, tactical response certified, threat level, variable, depending on threat assessment and mission parameters, security clearance, full facility access, classification, Class A strategic asset with extreme tactical capabilities and exceptional good boy status. Jake was particularly proud of the last part. Dr. Nimara had requested permission to completely restart her research, this time focusing on human-canine tactical cooperation and the implications for interspecies military alliance. Her preliminary report, titled Reconsideration of Terran Domestic Species, a Study in Catastrophe Classification Failure, was already being circulated among xenobiology departments across 7 sectors. I still don't understand, Vexkala said as Jake prepared to leave the station. How did your species develop such capabilities? The tactical intelligence, the adaptability, the coordination between human and canine units? Jake scratched Rex behind the ears, earning a contented sigh from the dog. 30,000 years of evolution and selective breeding, combined with a few thousand years of warfare, exploration, and general stubborn refusal to quit when things get difficult. Rex here represents the end result of humanity's longest and most successful partnership. Partnership, Vexkala repeated thoughtfully. Partnership, Jake confirmed. Not ownership, not domestication in the way you understand it. Partnership. Rex chooses to work with humans because we've earned his trust and respect. In return, we provide support, resources, and the occasional belly rub. Rex's tail thumped against the floor at the mention of belly rubs. The galaxy, Dr. Nimara said slowly, may have significantly underestimated both human and canine capabilities. The galaxy, Jake agreed, tends to do that a lot. We're used to it by now. As they walked toward the departure lounge, Jake reflected on the day's events. Another routine trading mission. Another group of aliens who'd learned that appearances could be deceiving. Rex had handled himself with typical professionalism. The facility would hopefully upgrade their security systems, and somewhere in the galaxy, other aliens would read the incident reports and maybe, just maybe, reconsider their assumptions about primitive species. You know what the best part is? Jake said to Rex as they settled into their transport seats. Rex tilted his head inquiringly. They still don't know about cats. Rex made a sound that might have been a chuckle. Behind them, Zenith Station began the long process of rebuilding, retraining, and reconsidering everything they thought they knew about threat assessment. In the cargo hold, Jake's trading goods included several cases of Earth coffee, chocolate, and dog treats. The coffee and chocolate were for his alien clients, who'd developed a taste for Terran stimulants. The dog treats were for Rex, who'd definitely earned them. Good boy indeed.